Uprising! So good to be back with you guys for the second week in our new series, The Naked Truth. Now, before we get going today, I want to run through our 5 student guidelines just as a friendly reminder. Number 1, let's be mature and respect whoever's speaking. And also, please hold in any sarcastic comments or giggles. Number 2, this is a normal part of life. What we're going through and what we're talking about is relevant to what we all deal with in this world. Number 3, let's make sure to respect our leaders and our friends when they're sharing and talking. These experiences might be unique to someone. You might not be able to relate, but listen. Number 4, you're safe here. So if you're struggling about something that we talk about, talk to one of your trusted leaders and they'd be more than willing to help you out. That's what they're here for. And number 5, pay attention to the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit might be trying to comfort you, convict you, or encourage you. Listen to what the Spirit's trying to say. Now, the last 2 things. First thing, as we talked about last week, we started a new devotional that we want you to be a part of. As a student body and a leader body, we're all going through the same devotional. So join in and do it with us. If you haven't started already, I'm not mad at you. I'm not going to jump through the screen and come at you, but your leaders would love to help you get started on that. So make sure to talk to them and they'll help you get rolling. And lastly, if you have a question, we want to hear it. You can ask anonymously any question that you want to on our Riverwood website, riverwood.cc/thenakedtruth, or ask one of your leaders. They can help you set up how to get to that page, or even go on our Instagram and ask us anything you want. We are here to help answer your questions and guide you through this challenging part in your life, if that's something that you're dealing with. Now, without further ado, let's send it over to Brittany for today's life lesson.
So last week, we started talking about God as the most incredible author that there ever was. And he wants to be a part of writing every story of our lives. Our stories of adventure, purpose, family, and friends, and also our romance stories. God was the first ever author of romance, and we know that he cares about this area of our lives and wants to be a part of writing our stories. And we talked last week about Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and how they were naked and felt no shame. If you missed it, basically, God created the first people, and it was a time before there was any sin and brokenness in the world, and they were naked, and they were fully comfortable and confident. Now, I have no idea what they looked like back then and what standard for beauty there was and if they fit it, but they wouldn't have cared. Their hearts were so close to God that it directed their emotions to feel completely good about their bodies. They knew that the most masterful artist, God, created them, and he did not make any mistakes. It was only when they stopped focusing on God and looked at their bodies that they felt shame and covered them. Now, when the world became broken, our bodies also became broken, and how we viewed our bodies became broken. And now we find ourselves in a world where we feel incredible amounts of shame of our bodies. And when I talk about shame, let me explain it a bit. I'm talking about that feeling of being insecure, not good enough, like our whole being is wrong and we don't matter. It's the feeling of not being worthy of love and belonging. We often feel shame when we feel like we don't meet the standard of attractive, or when we get rejected by someone that we like, or when someone has hurt our body or hurt our feelings about our body, or when we harm our bodies. The list could go on for 50 examples. There are so many ways that we feel shame about our bodies, and I think I can pretty accurately say that every single person listening has some sort of experience that even just for a moment made them feel shame. Yet this is never how God intended it. And removing shame from our bodies means changing the way that we see them. Romans, a letter that we find in the New Testament of our Bible, says this. It says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." See, God has different intentions for our bodies than the world has. And the way that we have God write our stories is by renewing our mind and the way that we see and think about our bodies and other people's bodies. So let's compare about how the world sees bodies and what God intended for them. And just a reminder that it matters what God intends for our bodies because he created them. And he knows them better than you or any doctor or scientist or nutritionist or beautician. And through understanding his intentions for our body, we can find so much healing for the areas of our lives that we feel broken and shame. And so my first observation of how the world sees our bodies is that the world sees our bodies as a means to get something, while God sees our bodies as a way to reflect his heart. Now, when I say it sees our bodies as a way to get something, I'm talking about getting approval or attention or likes or getting pleasure, that feeling of good feeling within your body, or to prove something. 1 Corinthians, another letter in the New Testament, is talking about sexual sin and brokenness. And the author writes, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies." Now, when you think temple, what do you think of? I think of a huge cathedral-like church that is just full of statues and gold trims, and it's so beautiful, it has these amazing paintings. But temples were more than just that. Temples were homes to people worshiping God. When it says that our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, it's saying that our bodies are beautiful, yes, but it's also home to the person of God, the Holy Spirit, who came with the purpose to reflect God through God's people on earth. Your body is meant to be a reflection of God, not a means to gain whatever you want. So we each need to ask ourselves what we are using our bodies for. And the choice isn't between either getting people to notice you or staying invisible. We just need to check our motives. Are we using our bodies to gain something? Or are we using our bodies to reflect God? When we put on that crop top or sweatpants or leggings or shirt showing off our muscles or whatever it may be, why are you wearing it? And it's not so much about rules or cultural appropriateness or the typical arguments for modesty. It's about whether or not our bodies are reflecting the heart of God. The heart of God is not to gain attention or approval, but to be confident that he created you as a masterpiece. Or another example, when you post that picture on Instagram or Snapchat, why? Are you doing it to get likes, thinking that's what people want to see, or trying to prove something or boast or make someone else jealous? Or when you send a revealing picture to another person, are you doing it because you want to get a picture in return? Because you want someone to think that you're attractive and sexy? Because you think that's what you need to get them to like you? In everything we do with our bodies, we need to ask ourselves, why? And am I doing it to get something, or am I doing it to reflect the heart of God? The second pattern of the world is that the world sees bodies as sexual, while God intended our bodies to be a casing to hold what is on the inside. Let me show you what I mean. Take this phone, for example, right? Now, you can all see the outside of this phone. You can see the casing, the screen, you can see, the camera and the microphone and the charging input. And you could say that what you see is what you get, and there's nothing else to it. But that would be so wrong. Our phone is not just the outside. If you were to open up the phone, you would find so much more. We would find the battery, the engine causing vibrations, the SIM card, the logic board, the cabling, everything that allows this phone to work, to gather information, to put that information to memory and communicate it with other phones. It's all on the inside. And the part of the phone that has the greatest value, the part that you are paying for, is the part that is inside the casing. The casing is made nice and it looks great. I mean, my screen's a little bit cracked, but other than that, it looks great. But the inside is the valuable stuff. Now, imagine that our bodies is like this phone casing, the outer part of the phone. And like screens show what is going on inside our phone, our bodies demonstrate what is going inside of our emotions, they show our personality, and they exhibit our character. But the problem is that we have over-sexualized bodies and made what people look like the most important thing. Now, over-sexualizing is basically when we see the value of bodies over the value of hearts, personalities, and character. It's when we look at someone and think more about their body than we do noticing them as a human with emotions. Now, attraction is not a bad thing. You are going to find people attractive and notice people, and that's not bad at all. But it's when you only see them for their body and place all their value on the casing instead of the inner parts of how they were created, that is an issue. See, when God made the first people, it says that he created them in his image. Now, this does not mean physical image. This means emotional image and character. The qualities that make us us, that you can't physically see. Those are the parts of the image of God. And our bodies were just meant to hold these parts and to reflect them. But when you look at a girl in an ad and you see her body and you feel that sense of attraction, but know nothing about her, and it doesn't matter who she is. You just dwell on her physical appearance. That is sexualization. Or when you're hanging out with your friends and you start to rate the guys in your class based on what they look like. That right there, that is sexualization. In our world, when we use people's bodies to sell products or to get more viewings or alter someone's body in Photoshop because if they were just a little bit different, then they would be perfect. That right there, that is sexualization. But we weren't meant to treat our bodies that way because God intended them to be the representation of who He created you to be as someone who is made in the image of God. So how do we renew our minds? As it says in 2 Corinthians 10:5, it says, take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. When we recognize that a thought directs us to valuing someone's body over what is on the inside, we must redirect our priorities. Under all circumstances, now you can't control others, but you can control your mind. So under all circumstances, we treat people with respect and value them for who God has created them to be, not their physical appearance. Now, I know this is a lot, but there's one more really important way that the world sees our bodies that deeply, deeply affects us. And the last point is this: the world sees the attitude towards our bodies as harmless, and God says that it is so dangerous. 1 Corinthians 6 says this: just because something is technically legal doesn't mean that it's spiritually appropriate. If I went around doing whatever I thought I could get by with, I'd be a slave to my whims. There's more to sex than mere skin on skin. Sex is as much a spiritual mystery as physical fact. There's a sense in which sexual sin is different from others. In sexual sin, we violate the sacredness of our own bodies, these bodies that were made for God, given, and God-modeled love for becoming one with another. See, there's reason that God talks so much about bodies, lust, and sex in the Bible. Because how we treat our bodies, what we do with our bodies, and how we see other people's bodies and treat them has a lasting effect. Our world thinks that we can do anything and it would be fine, which, sure, you have been given choice and you can choose how to use your bodies and others, but just because you've been given the choice does not mean that you have freedom. Now let me explain this real quick. Our bodies have desires that sometimes feel really strong and uncontrollable. An easy example is with food. You get cravings to eat sweets and chips and junk food, and you have the choice if you want to eat them. But often the cravings, they get so bad that we give in. And the fact is, giving into our body's cravings for sweets isn't freedom. It's slavery to our bodies. And just because you can eat sweets does not mean that it's good for your body. Unhealthy eating has a lasting effect on every single part of your body. And the same goes with what we do with our bodies, how we try to gain something with them, and how we view and treat other people's bodies as sexual. We have these almost cravings of what our body wants to feel good and to get attention. And we have the choice to give into those, but that's not freedom. It is slavery to the cravings of our body. And God says that true freedom is found when we follow His dream for our lives and allow Him to be part of writing our stories. So ask yourself, are you giving into the cravings of your body, thinking that it won't have any lasting effect? You see, you may already be feeling like you are facing consequences of how you treated your body or others' bodies, and God has so much grace for you. Or you may be feeling the consequences of someone else's actions or words about your body that just prove the dangers of the world's view of our bodies. And God has so much healing for you. That is why Jesus came, to help us when we are weak, to save us when we make mistakes, to remind us that no matter what we've done, what we're going to do, what's been done to us, and how broken we feel, that He loves us, wants to heal us, and wants us to put our focus back on Him. And there's so much hope when we come together and help each other process the messages that the world has given, and talk to people that we trust about our experiences, and seek God together for directing our minds back to Him. And that is what we are going to do right now in our life groups. So you can split off into your life groups, and let's continue to have this conversation about how the world sees our bodies and what God intended for them.